Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. There is a lot that's happening right now and new things have come to light that we previously did not know. So just right off the top of the list, we had two oarfish wash up in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico on the 20th of February. Oarfish are known as doomsday fish, and these were quite large. Two of them, about the same size, on the day of one of the most significant planetary conjunctions in our lifetimes, if not even for centuries. And that was the Saturn-Neptune Conjunction in the constellation of Pisces, which is two fish. So really on the nose, symbology there indicating that that is quite a pivotal event. That occurred on the 20th of February. Just today, we had a magnitude 4.9 earthquake strike Louisiana. That is not a location that typically gets earthquakes. Magnitude 4.9. We've been having earthquake activity in South Carolina, a bit of an earthquake swarm. Nothing too crazy, but hey, it's been happening. Magnitude 4.1 here up in Nebraska. That was back on the 1st of March. And starting in February, we had a kindness geyser here erupt for the first time. So not the first time ever, but the first time in 5 years. It last had eruptions in December of 2020. Had, I believe it was two or three eruptions. This is a geyser in December 2020. That's very interesting because that's when we had a great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. And then it started to reawaken in February, and now it's been erupting dozens of times every 2 to 5 hours. This is significant because it's the world's largest acidic geyser. So it's not just any old geyser around the world, right? There's a lot of them. It's the world's largest acidic geyser. So there's a significance to that because it's exactly that. And that started up in February, the time of these this great conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. So we have a lot of things resonating right now on Earth, and that cycle is still very, very active. We also yesterday had the strongest earthquake in a little bit of time, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake there, Rhett Islands, the Aleutian Islands for Alaska. So that is quite big. That did not trigger tsunami or anything, but we've had a significant increase in seismicity over the past 4 days, as we've been talking about leading up to this blood moon. That's something that I was discussing, planetary geometry and some other factors as well. And while we had a magnitude 6.3 in Fiji, magnitude 6 volcano islands, and then a magnitude 6.2 Indonesia, and then the next day magnitude 6.4. So in 4 days, ramping up like this. And that is above the statistical average for magnitude 6 plus earthquakes. So a lot happening right now. And really the biggest story here, I wish I learned of this sooner. I just found out about this yesterday, maybe even this morning. I think it was this morning. Yeah. What were these two oarfish that washed up? So we are going to do a question and answer after the report. If you have a question, then you can leave it in the chat. I will answer some questions from the general chat before I then move on to super thanks questions. So if you want to make sure your question gets answered, then attach it to a super thanks. Please stay on topic. I'll answer all the questions unless they're absolutely nutso. I reserve that right, though in general, even those I typically will play with. So try to keep on topic though. Love you all. And but we're going to do our report first. So again, if you're new here, I'm your host Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, cosmic bro. Really just someone who's trying to understand what's happening on this planet, looking at all the different things. Also utilizing the knowledge, you could say, of like synchronicity and some of these more metaphysical aspects, which have been proven time and time again, incorporating these tools, astro alignments and more into the toolbox and into the repertoire to be the most accurate as possible. Tomorrow, March 7th and through the 8th, we have a significant planetary alignment coming up with Mercury and also Venus, Saturn, and Neptune. So it's a quadruple alignment. We have Mercury Cazimi coming up tomorrow. It's an inferior conjunction So Earth, Mercury, Sun. And then just slightly off from that, we have a Earth-Venus-Saturn-Neptune alignment. That's quite significant. That could act perhaps as a trigger for whatever this may be indicating. Again, there's no guarantee that there is actually a pattern here, okay? Maybe I'm just over-interpreting things and there's actually nothing to this. It's highly possible, okay? I'm not perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm not all-knowing. But what we'll see is that there's actually layers of synchronicity to this, which adds more meaning into these events than you may otherwise think at first glance, which is indicating more strongly that they could be leading signs of something bigger to occur. So again, nothing's guaranteed, but you learn to interpret the language and you can see that there is a basically a lot of significance here. And let's get into it. Let's start off with what I think is the most significant, these oarfish. So here is our first video. We see two oarfish here. And this video is taken by a Monica out of Texas. That is her Instagram right there. You can, and actually this video can be resized a little bit. Here we go. So this is linked in the video description. She has a full video. There's part of the clip I did not show where her and some friends are like moving the fish into the ocean. I just focused on the most important aspects, which are the oarfish themselves. You see that they are large, okay? These are not small oarfish. These are big ones. Let me pull up a photo for you just really quickly to show you the scale and size of these oarfish, okay? Because often they wash up and they're fairly tiny, but oarfish can get really, really big. And this is exactly what's happened with these ones, is that they are very, very large. So here we have the photo of some of these people beginning to move the oarfish, right? Here's a woman, look at the size of this thing. Huge body, and then you have her kind of slotted in, this guy, her, and you still have more tail there. So I mean, probably at least 12 feet long, if not more. I think it's actually a little bit longer. In the video on our Instagram, you can check it out. They're like pulling the thing into the water. They said it weighed like 200, 300 pounds. So this is not a tiny fish. And in fact, there are two of them. Again, here's the first one, washed ashore. Here is the second one, still in the water there, about the same size it looks like. These are known as doomsday fish, because this is based off of Japanese myth and folklore that before powerful earthquakes and tsunamis, these oarfish, or they're also known as ribbon fish, would wash ashore. They are denizens of the deep, so they hang out in deep, deep, deep water. You will never see them at the surface unless they've come up as a result of there being some outside or just kind of chaotic influence, okay? So it's not like they come up and feed at the surface and go back down. If they get to the surface, they die. That's as far as I know. And I've done quite a bit of research into these oarfish because we've been tracking this on the channel and using that to forecast high magnitude earthquakes. Most notably in July of 2025, we had the magnitude 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamchatka, Russia. And in the 2 months preceding that, we had multiple oarfish wash up around the world. New Zealand, Australia, India. And we were looking at that very closely because I don't take that folklore as just complete nonsense, because it was developed over the course of hundreds of years of anecdotal sightings putting two and two together. So what's the mechanism? Well, they are very sensitive to their electromagnetic environment, and they're in the deep, deep ocean, near the bottom of the ocean. So often what we see during powerful earthquakes, before those big earthquakes occur, is that there are these pre-earthquake electromagnetic signals. And as a result, that can change the electric field dynamic of the bottom of the ocean. That probably causes problems for these guys, drives them up to the surface to get away from that, and then they depressurize and die. Now, the people here, they did successfully move them back into the ocean, and they swam off, I guess. I'm not sure how well they swam off. They probably didn't make it, but maybe they did. I'm not the ultimate expert, but it's nice of them to have done that. Here's the other video we have of the oarfish close up. We see that, it has some scrapes and bruises on it. It's clearly not been having a good time. I don't think that they made it. I've never heard of a report of an oarfish coming to the surface and then being able to go back down. They're driven up, and I think that that process just inherently causes problems. So 2 of them washing up in Cabo San Lucas. We're going to discuss a few things with this before we move on to some of the other things like Yellowstone. That's pretty significant. Tying in with this, you'll see the significance that I'm talking about in just a moment. But here is Cabo San Lucas right here, the bottom of Baja California. Here's the Gulf of California. And I'm not sure which beach it was, but you see that there is a bit of a drop off eventually, and you have the San Andreas running through this whole area. This Gulf of California is the San Andreas, and then it turns into a subduction zone further down near, for example, like Oaxaca. Then it really gets strong with Central America. So these oarfish in 2025 for Kamchatka, here's the location of the magnitude 8.8 megaquake Kamchatka. It's right about here, okay? Well, they washed up all the way over here. They washed up, I think there was even some that washed up in India, or one. I remember seeing a video, I reported on that. Definitely New Zealand, Australia. So that's a huge zone, okay? As you can see, because that's way up there. But that was also the biggest earthquake we've had since 2011. The magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake, Japan, located roughly right here. And well, they also had dozens of oarfish wash up in the months preceding that magnitude 9.1. The bigger the earthquake, the further in advance these pre-earthquake electromagnetic signals can occur, okay? So the fact that the 2 largest earthquakes of the 21st century, the 9.1, well, not actually, you have the magnitude 9 with Sumatra. I've heard reports of oarfish washing up for that as well, though I can't right now confirm that 100% for you guys. I would need to look into that more. But 2 of the 3 largest earthquakes guaranteed in the 21st century had tons of oarfish washing up in the weeks and months preceding the rupture of the quakes. And those are big earthquakes. The energy scale for earthquakes is not linear. So you go up 1 order of magnitude, it's 32 times more energy. So it really starts to scale up. A magnitude 9.1 earthquake is many, many, many times the size of like a Hiroshima nuclear bomb, for example. So it's a massive amount of energy. Well, this is Cabo San Lucas. So I would say because of how widespread this can be, this earthquake alert now for the next few months. This is probably because it's 2 of them, big ones, and we'll talk about the planetary aspects in just a second. I really say this earthquake alert is for this entire region, though with Mexico at the highest risk location for this. So it's hard to say where, but we do also have California a little bit of a higher risk as well. And the reason why is we had a close relative of an oarfish, a sort of ribbon fish, that basically has the same lifestyle, living down at depth, things of this nature, wash up in Monterey on December 30th of 2025. So we had that wash up. I made a video talking about that, saying signs pointing to California having an earthquake. So you have a close oarfish relative. There's only like 3 different subspecies, okay? You have this ribbonfish wash up there, December 30th of 2025. Now we have 2 oarfish wash up here, February 20th of 2026. That specifically is exactly on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Let me show you. This adds a whole new level of significance to it, and it's really quite wild because it's 2 oarfish, and that conjunction occurred in the constellation of Pisces. So we can go back here to February 20th. We're looking at our solar system, okay? And here is the Earth right here. Here is Saturn. There is Neptune conjunct in the constellation of Pisces. This guy right there, which is the constellation of the fishes. There's 2 fish. That's the whole thing. The symbol of Pisces is 2 fish. And then we have on that day, exactly 2 fish, or fish mind you, not just any fish, or fish, big ones, wash ashore in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, just about a month and a half after a ribbonfish, close relatives to the oarfish, wash ashore in Monterey Bay, California. And guess what? The last big earthquake to strike California, Northern California specifically, was Loma Prieta, magnitude 6.9, 1989. Okay, well, let's go back in time to 1989, shall we? Let's do it. I don't know exactly when Loma Prieta occurred. I could look it up, and I will do that really quick. So let's find out exactly when Loma Prieta occurred. I think it was like March something, but regardless, we'll get the exact date right now. Sorry, October 17th, that's right, October 17th, 1989. Let's go back now, and we'll go to October 17th, 1989, right here. That's right, we had the Saturn-Neptune Conjunction occur within like a month of that date. So here we see them right there. Here we go. Saturn hasn't yet gone conjunct with Neptune. If we go forward just a little bit, it occurred in November. Here we see it. So within a month of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 1989, we had a magnitude 6.9 earthquake strike Northern California. We are right now in the next Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and we haven't had a big earthquake in California. No guarantee that we will. But crazy that you have 2 oarfish washing ashore the day of the next Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the one that occurred February 20th of 2026, close to California on the San Andreas Fault, Cabo San Lucas, 2 fish in the constellation of Pisces. It's really quite mind-blowing, okay? Now, next thing to discuss is Yellowstone, because adding significance into all of this is the fact that we had this geyser here starting to erupt in 2026. This is Echinus geyser, or Echinus, I think it's Echinus geyser in Yellowstone. And, you know, there's dozens and dozens of geysers, maybe even hundreds of geysers in Yellowstone. So, you know, keep that in mind, okay? Like, it is good to look at this skeptically, but that's why you add in some of this synchronicity and symbolism to really kind of drive the point home, because, you know, it's not one of these like number memes where they're just making stuff up. Like, this is pretty simple stuff. I could go more complex, but I don't think it's necessarily needed. I want you to be able to follow along. So Echinus geyser here is the world's largest acidic geyser. So it's not just any geyser, it's the world's largest acidic geyser. When you're looking at synchronicity, you want to look at things that have special significance to them. So it's the world's largest. So therefore you should probably pay a little bit more attention to it than if it's just some tiny little geyser bubbling up. Okay? World's largest acidic geyser. All right, you have neutral geysers, it's the water pH. Then you have acidic geysers, and they're a bit more acidic. pH is like 3.5 or so. Well, the last time Echinus geyser was active, we can go right here. We see all the eruptions here in the intervals, okay? We see it's been quite active in February. This is showing the last 20 entries. I think, looks like the last known eruption was 9 days ago. 8 hours, okay? But we go back, we see one there, 9th of February of this year, 2026, and we see 6th of February is the first one since 2020, December 17th. There were 1, 2, 3, 4 eruptions, it looks like, in December from the 16th to the 17th. And then you have to go back to 2019, where there were 2 eruptions in January. Then you started having eruptions in 2017, okay? So there is not some resonance between this geyser and the planets for all the eruptions, but for the past 2 most recent cycles, there is. Because again, if we go back to page 3, it's like December 17th, of 2020 and it's February of 2026. Okay, well, let's go back to our solar system diagram here. Okay, and this is, hey, it's a little bit of an oddball. Like, don't ask me to explain how this is working, but there's something to this. Now, it's not three. In general, I have a kind of a rule of thumb. It's like if there's three things in a row, there's something to it. If there's two, you pay attention, but you can't be definitive with like, okay, there's something here. We have two in a row. We don't have three in a row. It's not just a one-off though. Okay, so let's go back to 2020, December specifically, and we can go right here for that. December 17th, 2020. Look at that. Here we have Earth, Jupiter, Saturn. This is a highly significant planetary conjunction. It's the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. Occurs once every 20 years. It's one of the most significant planetary conjunction cycles in existence because it occurs fairly regularly, but also it's fairly spread out. Jupiter and Saturn being the two biggest planets in our solar system. Okay. Now, we've had big planetary conjunctions since then. Here, this is involving, again, Jupiter and Saturn. If we go to 2024, we'll see in April, around April 21st, that was exactly when we had this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, as you can see. But that's Jupiter. It's Uranus. Saturn's not involved. The last Saturn conjunction that we had since the one that's occurring basically right now, but February 20th, if you really want to be precise of this year, right, was the Jupiter-Saturn one. So we have two geyser eruptive episodes from this world's largest acidic geyser corresponding to when Saturn did significant conjunctions with other outer planets. And we can basically drag Saturn here to show you this. If we go back in time, here is where that really occurred. Right here is when Equinus geyser was erupting. And then we go forward and then it hits the next planet, Jupiter. Boom, we get more eruptions from it. And there was, so I posted about that on, X, Twitter, and it said, you know, hydrothermal activity is increasing at Yellowstone, and then the USGS responded saying it's not increasing, geysers turn on and off all the time. So, hey, you know, that's true, but I mean, just because they're turning on and off doesn't mean you don't have rhythms of increasing and decreasing. And when you have the world's largest acidic geyser not only turn on for the first time in 5 years, but you know, in 2020 it just had 3 eruptions. 2019 it had 4 eruptions in 2020. Had 2 eruptions in 2019. Now it's had dozens. Okay, so sounds like an increase to me. And there's a bit of a history with the USGS trying to downplay things, and they don't want to alarm people. And this isn't like, you know, Yellowstone's a super volcano. This is hydrothermal activity. Yeah, there's a ton of other geysers as well. So I understand what they're saying. There's a lot of geysers. I don't have the data on all of them plotted out to 100% say hydrothermal activity has been increasing. But when you take the world's largest acidic geyser and all of a sudden it turns on in a big way, first time in 5 years, I think there's something to that, okay? And so that's also correlating with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So as a result of that, if you want, you could build a connection between them. That is their link, right? And if that is the case, we could be perhaps seeing some sort of larger geophysical change here as a result. It's a little tenuous, but I think it's worth exploring into a little bit, okay? Because this is so on the money, so on the nose, and this is definitely not to ignore, because again, the added level of significance there is the fact that it also lined up with that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the great conjunction of Jupiter-Saturn, which is also a great mutation, really significant stuff. So you start to add this stuff together, I think it's worth paying attention to. Now, in addition to that, we just had a magnitude 4.9 earthquake hit Louisiana. This is a big earthquake. You do not get big earthquakes in Louisiana all that often. Magnitude 4.9, depth 5 kilometers. That's making the rounds right now. We've had some earthquakes around South Carolina recently over the past month. In this location here, that's rattled and jolted some people. They've all been like magnitude 3s and 2s, but still kind of worth noting. You will know that there is an east seismic, it's like East Tennessee seismic zone right here that then bleeds down to Charleston. This is a higher seismic risk, so there is seismicity in this region. But the fact that that's active combined with the 4.9 and combined with this 4.1 up here, Nebraska, that's quite large. You know, we're starting to see big, and there was also a magnitude 4 earthquake in Alberta early February. So we're seeing just like larger earthquakes than normal in areas of the North American plate where we typically don't see them. And then you get this largest acidic geyser to start blowing up like crazy. You get the oarfish to pop off, right? 2 of them wash ashore. They're big oarfish. Again, you can look at them right here. I mean, these are big fish. I think they're probably 10, 12, maybe not 15 feet, but maybe 15 feet. They're getting up there. They're big fish. They're definitely big fish. So, and then you add on this magnitude 6.4 earthquake right here, Alaska. That's also right connected to the United States. I think there's just a lot here. Now, let me show you this planetary convergence that we have coming up, okay? Because this is also significant. This is tomorrow. All right, so let me show you this. Again, we'll go back to our solar system scope, and we see right here that it's nearly active already. Here is the Earth, there is Mercury, there is the Sun. We have Mercury performing an inferior conjunction with the Sun on the 7th, right here, and then we see Venus, Earth, Venus, Saturn, Neptune. So the Earth-Venus-Neptune alignment will be on the 7th within just hours of the Mercury-Cazimi inferior conjunction. Then about 24 hours later, we'll have that perfect alignment between Earth, Venus, and Saturn on the 8th. But in general, they're so close together, I think you can look at it a little too closely and kind of lose sight of it, okay? So we have this alignment with Earth, Venus, Saturn, Neptune from the 7th to the 8th at the same time as this inferior conjunction of Mercury. Now, back in 2025, we had some significant alignments with Mercury and Venus, and we had a magnitude 7.7 earthquake pop off in Myanmar just a few days later. Look at this, double inferior conjunction with Mercury and Venus right here, roughly in line with Saturn and Neptune. So this time it's a little different, right? They're not both inferior conjunct, Venus and Mercury. We were looking at this and talking about earthquakes back then. We also were looking at the space weather factors with coronal holes on the sun, high-speed streams, and basically sounding the alarm. And that was a devastating earthquake. Actually, I think probably the most deadly earthquake of 2025, in addition to the earthquake that struck Afghanistan. That was also quite devastating, but the magnitude 7.7, Burma, Myanmar, Thailand was bigger, quite a bit bigger. So you can see just in general how there's a resonance between, it's rhyming very strongly between now and then. So I think that's worth paying attention to. Whew, yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of things. And we can go here to our True Sky. I just want to show you one more time. Let's go back to the 20th of February. We're looking at, this is an astronomical chart, you could say, okay? And so this is looking at the constellations, not the signs. The signs are the zodiac. That's like Western tropical astrology. This is the constellations, true sky, accurate to scale, and also including a fucus here. Well, you see here on the 20th, Saturn and Neptune smack dab right there in Pisces. So 2 fish washing ashore. As they're going conjunct in the constellation of Pisces, it's God having a little bit, playing a joke and having a little bit of laugh on us, but we don't know where that's going to end up. There is a bit of a resonance between Saturn-Neptune conjunctions and California earthquakes. We had the oarfish wash up in California back on December 30th of 2025. So there's a lot happening. Now we're starting to see a bit more activity from Yellowstone than normal. Now, we had the largest earthquake in Yellowstone last year in like 3 or 4 years. We're not seeing necessarily more earthquake activity at Yellowstone. We're not necessarily seeing like significant inflation as compared to prior time periods at Yellowstone. But world's largest acidic geyser turning on for the first time in 5 years. I think that's something. I think that's something. We can check this inferior conjunction in Mercury. We can see it directly with our coronagraph. So let's look at this. Here is our coronagraph view C3, and this shows the past 24 hours of activity from the sun in terms of coronal mass ejections and solar wind. Here is Mercury. So because it's performing an inferior conjunction, it's moving in the direction of the sky. We're actually fixed on the sun here, denoted by this white circle, and therefore the sun is moving forward, you could say, against the background sky. But you'll notice Mercury is moving faster. See that star right there? Look at the distance that Mercury is putting in between that star, especially from the beginning to the end of the video, showing that that is not just a background star, a fixed star, that's the planet Mercury. So it's inclined above the ecliptic plane. It does not shine that brightly because it's in front of the Earth, in between the sun and the Earth, but it will be having that inferior conjunction occur on the 7th of March, and we see it play out literally in front of our eyes with some of our imagery that we get every single day of the sun due to this coronagraph here. So quite a lot of, we're seeing all happen. So in general, we have a kind of a heightened energy window for the next 3 days as a result of this planetary alignment that's active, the Earth-Mercury-Sun conjunction, the Earth-Venus-Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the fact that there's Saturn and Neptune resonating with that. They're both still in Pisces, of course, and we had this occur, kind of adds a little bit into that. And if there is a big shift, let's just play hypothetical. If there is a big earthquake that's due to occur, let's say magnitude 7 or greater, like I don't know what the scale would be if it is to occur, but California can get up to magnitude 8. Mexico can get beyond magnitude 8, okay? They've had big earthquakes here, megaquakes, because of the subduction zone. And if we go down to Central America, they can get big earthquakes, all right? If we go up to, for example, like Oregon, Washington, the Cascadia subduction zone, they can get to magnitude 9. So we're looking at potentially big earthquakes here. But even just a magnitude 7, perhaps before a big event like that is to occur, you're going to see more seismicity across the entire North American plate. It's possible. We see signs before earthquakes, especially the bigger they are, the further out they are. Electromagnetic signals. There's, we see often seismicity, like foreshock activity. So this could be indicating that there's some large slip event to occur. Hard to say. Who knows? But that is basically, I'm doing my best to interpret what's happening here. I'm seeing a lot of signs, signals, synchronicities, and I hope that basically nothing occurs. I also, just to touch on it, I just think about the karma, man. The United States government, at least, right? The powers that be are not accumulating good karma right now. Let us just be honest. When there are innocent people, some not innocent, but there are innocent people that are dying, that's not a good thing. So God balances everything out. That's what I believe. And I think everything's energetically connected together. So it's kind of the you can't have your cake and eat it too type scenario. And well, that's just the state of the union, you could say. So yeah, we'll do a question and answer now. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Hope you enjoyed the video and the broadcast. If you have a question, please ask it in the chat. You can do it in all caps. I will take a few from the general chat, and then I will take questions from the super thanks. So if you really want your question answered, that is the way to do it. And yeah, just to add on to that, right? Saturn is the energy, the planet, the archetype of karma. So you have that as well. And you have Saturn also representing the solid Earth and Neptune representing the oceans. So really on the nose with this being in Pisces, and you already have that symbology baked into those two planets as well. So we could be looking at a significant event. If it is going to be an earthquake, let's say, we could be looking at a significant event off the coast of North America. And if we go up here, 1906, for example, the Great San Francisco earthquake, 1906, it was right off the coast. Did not have an epicenter over land. So, you know, this is possible. We have the San Andreas cutting through right here, literally creating the, what is this, the Bay, Tamales Bay right here. Beautiful place, Point Reyes. We have it cutting through, of course, here, and then cutting through, well, it starts to kind of deviate a little bit, but regardless, we, of course, have it cutting through the Gulf of California right there. They get big earthquakes here, keep in mind. Magnitude 7s actually pop off fairly regularly in the Gulf of California. So there's a lot of locations, but the highest risk, I would say, because of the oarfish up here, would then include Mexico and California, and then in lower risk, but still elevated for the next couple months, Central America, Mexico down here at the subduction zone. I would also really kind of add that into that high risk zone because it is a subduction zone, and then Cascadia up there, lower risk but still elevated, because we've seen, again, widespread distribution of oarfish washing up before powerful earthquakes. So yeah, let's get into some of these questions. What's the furthest north an earthquake has struck in the continental USA? Well, I mean, certainly there's going to be one that happened right on the line. And there's tons of earthquakes in Alaska. So, I mean, if you add a significance of like the largest one furthest north, then I don't really have that answer because, I mean, we've had a lot of earthquakes, for example, in this region that can be quite large, but we get earthquakes happening all the time, of course, all across North America. Though they're more concentrated here in, let's say, like California. We can look at that really quick. Here we have our past month of earthquakes for California, right? You see very little activity in Canada, really in the shield here, right? Very little. So when you get one, it's quite significant. Here we see tons around Alaska, the subduction zone. These are all like low magnitude stuff. There's that, here's the most recent 5.5, just popped off. Like literally just popped off. This is not the location of the 6.4, which is over here. Here we see location of the 6.4 and the magnitude 5s and 4s that occurred there. We just now had a 5.5 pop off to the east. So, hey, now we're seeing more activity even getting closer to the mainland. But again, you see tons of earthquake activity cluster along there. And we'd be seeing a lot more here if they had a better seismic network that the USGS tapped into. You can see that we're only reporting magnitude 4s and such over here, right? See 4.4, 4.4, whereas a lot of these earthquakes, magnitude 0.6, magnitude 1.2. It's actually a quarry blast, 1.6. So if you were to filter this, for example, to be magnitude 2.5 and greater, you see it changes the story a little bit, but we're still not showing all the 2.5s that are happening in this location because that's Mexico, not the United States. And Shala is asking about earthquake data for Europe. We've been having some earthquakes up here in, there's one that hit Slovakia recently, 4.1. And we've had some earthquakes, I believe, in Romania, right here. 4.5. There's a lot of hydrothermal activity, keep in mind, all across Central Europe. So when you get these sort of magnitude 4s in Central Europe, it's typically related to that. You'll notice then you get more earthquakes around Italy and around, for example, Greece, kind of extending up there into Croatia. And if we include Turkey, let's say, then we get quite a bit of earthquakes there as well. But in general, I really only cover Europe when it's really like there's a sign of something big coming. Like back last year when we had the earthquake swarm around Santorini, right? That was a sign of a huge magma intrusion coming in. So when there's an isolated magnitude 4 in Europe, there are extensive hydrothermal systems all across Europe. That's why there's so many great spas and everything. So you don't really have that in the United States as much. It's more in select locations like California, Yellowstone, a few other spots, Nevada, but in general it's fairly isolated to those locations, more widespread for Europe. So hope that helps. Quick question from Tessa is, where did you get your boots from the meditation session in Sweden? Those are Muklux, M-U-K-L-U-K-S. There's a company that sells them that's really well known. I would just type in Muklux from the United States and check them out. That's where I got mine. And Homesick Alien saying, have I seen the Schumann resonance for today? We can check it out right here. Here's our latest data. I'll refresh this though just to be sure. Here's our latest data for the Schumann resonances out of Tomsk, Russia, and doesn't really look notable. This is probably weather activity in Tomsk. We can check it out specifically. Always check the weather in Tomsk. See what it says. And look at that, it's been raining. Rain. That's coming up, but it's clearly been raining. It's also been cold. And that's the sort of activity that you get when it's raining or snowing, etc. So yeah, nothing to really report there of significance. That's why you have to be kind of discerning when you're looking at Schumann data, because most, like 95% of Schumann, actually probably 99% of the people that talk about it haven't done the research and are just willing to say whatever to make something out of it. It's unfortunate, but that's just what it is. I wish it were not so. But the fact that they're bringing greater awareness to it, I think, is ultimately a good thing. And the final question I'll take from the general chat, so if you want your question to get answered at this point, make sure you attach it to a super thanks, is hypothetically, if Cascadia did have a 9.0, is it true the entire I-5 corridor and westward would be underwater, or is that an exaggeration? That's just like one of these fantasy myths that people continue to perpetuate online. I don't know why. We do see geologically that there can be some significant shifts in terms of elevation for earthquakes, but the San Andreas plate boundary, that fault line, is a strike slip. There's very little motion up or down. So there would have to be something beyond our current, well beyond our current understanding of geology to sink basically California. And we don't have evidence of that, okay? So it's not something that makes any sense, but I get so frustrated with this whole thing because a lot of people want California to sink because they hate California. I'm not going to get into it. But that's why that keeps getting perpetuated online. It is an exaggeration. You don't have to be worried about that. You have to be more concerned about shaking, right? Structural damage to your house, things falling, things of that nature. Power and water going out. But don't be fooled into this nonsense about all that. So, though at the end of the day, I don't know. So hey, be prepared for everything, but I wouldn't let fear run your life, okay? Now, Celestial Gatekeeper, thank you for the very, very generous super thanks. That is very appreciated. And much love to you. Much love to everyone watching the chat. Cedric, thank you for the super thanks as well. Thank you for support. Geraldine, thank you for the super thanks. It's very nice and kind of you. It's much appreciated. And Plasma Memory Restored, thank you for your super thanks. Thank you for your update and report. Much appreciated. Someone mentioned in the comments the 3i Atlas debris field, and I agree. I would like to know your thoughts on that as well if you feel like discussing. I've discussed it a lot. We're going through that from March to April. So we're starting to get into that now. We don't know how big or significant this debris field is. There has to be some of it because some of the dust grains from the tail of 3i Atlas are going to be large enough to not be pushed out by the radiative pressure of the sun. So there has to be some that are going to be falling in slowly, but there's also an acceleration to them, like a velocity component to them, continuing in the direction of 3i Atlas. The closest approach to Jupiter's on the 17th, that's much more significant. I don't think us moving through the debris field is really that significant, but it is happening to some degree. I think you just kind of layer that in a little bit, understand that's happening, but we're not going to see like, fireballs coming down or anything. That's almost certainly not going to occur. There was a lot of jet activity on 3i Atlas, but I've talked about it a lot. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I have discussed it already. There are videos out there. Thank you for your super thanks, Plasma. Much appreciated. Barry, thank you for the 2 quid. Thanks so much. Troy, thank you for the super thanks. Much appreciated. And Heart Sparkles, is Iceland in the mix due to critical levels of magma at Svartsengi? Perhaps. We've been seeing increased activity at Iceland over the past few years. As it relates to this specifically, I don't know. That would definitely, we are seeing Iceland kind of get ready to have a new eruptive cycle, and it's on the other side of the North American plate, the other big hot spot. So the fact that we have this happening is pretty significant, I would say, in relation to this whole theme that I talked about today. And then you also add in the fact that the Hawaiian hotspot's been having bigger and bigger eruptions at Kilauea now. 43 episodes. Next one coming up in just a few days, probably. So, we're just seeing in general kind of like an upsurge of activity across the board. We had that giant magma intrusion at Santorini last year. We've been having exponentially increasing activity at Campi Flegrei in Italy, Italy's supervolcano. We've been having seismic swarms in Japan, big earthquakes in Japan, big earthquakes across all of Southeast Asia, just tons of activity around the globe. And there are patterns to this, mud volcano eruptions in Colombia and in Azerbaijan. So there's a lot that's happening. I think this is Azerbaijan right there. That should be Baku, if I'm right. Maybe it's a little, here's Baku. This should be it. Here's Baku. There it is. Okay. So we're just seeing, very interesting activity across the board. Stronger storms with cyclones and blizzards and more, bigger, stronger heat waves, stronger cold snaps. The weather's becoming more volatile as climate change accelerates. And people, they get all freaked out with the words climate change because their political bias is so connected to it. Forget all that. It's 2 words, climate change. All it means is that climate's changing. Then people say, well, the climate's always changing. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it changes faster. Sometimes it's like fairly stable, actually. We have these kind of, it's harmonious and fairly just equalized, you can say. So there's not that much change. The magnitude of change is increasing. And there's no political nonsense with this. It's climate change. 2 words, that's it. You don't have to go beyond that. That's what we're seeing though. More severe weather, stronger storms. We're just seeing a lot on our planet right now. So I'm looking at this basically as just open-mindedly, as unattached as possible to all the nonsense that's floating around out there, because I want to know the truth, right? And not be fed some narrative or lie. And that's very important. Plasma Memory, thank you for the super thanks. Energetically in events, I meant. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, 3i Atlas is still interacting with us at an energetic and conscious level. So I don't think it's coincidence that's lining up with Jupiter at the same time that we will be moving through whatever stream does happen to pass by Earth. And I think that's where we're going to continue to see people awaken and say no to the system, right? Because it's the system that's controlling your mind and programming you to think a certain way and keeping you busy so you don't do things to fix the broken system and therefore fix your body, fix your health. I just today went to the spa, first time in some time that I had a massage, and the lady's like, oh my God, like you're holding so much tension like in your body. And yeah, and I'm out there still like stretching more often than most people and doing things of this nature, being mindful of relaxation, and I could be a lot better. But think of how much energy most people have in their bodies, these lines of tension. And it's time for us to reclaim our sovereignty over all this stuff. So that's just like in general, a little background influence making things better and better. So thank you, Plasma. Once again, we do have this. I believe that as well. are we expecting EMP-like solar flares this summer? Solar activity is dying down, though right now, I'm glad you mentioned it, right now in particular, we do have some sunspots Earth-facing right at this moment and also Earth-center direct, but solar flare activity has been very, very low over the past few days, so we haven't seen anything significant from these sunspots. And I don't think we're going to be getting too much activity from the sun this year in terms of big solar flares. We'll have to wait and see. I think what occurred beginning of February was one of the big shows of this solar cycle. We're probably going to get some more. We'll get some more sunspots, some more solar storms, impacts, and geomagnetic storms. But solar maximum now is basically at an end. We're in the descending phase. We're just not the descending phase of solar maximum. It was going to happen. It's happening now. We have like 3 years ramping down for that. So we're going to get more activity, but it's not going to be as frequent as it was for the past 3 years. What we do see, though, is earthquake activity usually is higher during the descending phase and minimum phase after that loading from solar maximum. So get ready for that. That's where things are going to be shifting. That's the expectation. Last question from Sherry. Damage to Central Oregon with a magnitude 9 on Oregon Cascadia. It would not be good, okay? It wouldn't be good. So we don't want that to happen, but you can expect a lot of shaking. But a Cascadia earthquake is more likely to occur more probably up here. So you may not feel it as strong as you may think you would. But just be prepared. I mean, some of these questions are kind of difficult to answer. And because people want precise answers. And it's like, well, life's not precise like that. So make sure you have supplies, hand crank radio. And, don't freak out about it. Don't be fearful of it. Don't go to bed every night, worried about it and not sleeping well. That's going to do more damage to you than an earthquake. But a magnitude 9 would be big. It'd be big. So, prepare accordingly. Yeah, and we hope that it doesn't happen. So with that, thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I've been your host, Stefan Burns, and please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay informed on what's happening with the Earth energetically, earthquakes, volcanoes, severe weather, geomagnetic storms, solar activity like solar flares and coronal mass ejections, planetary alignments, planetary resonances. Again, tomorrow we have that significant planetary alignment, Earth, Mercury, Sun, and also Earth, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, both at the same time. That's quite significant. Sunspots on Earth facing, right in line with us right now, to keep that in mind. So we do have a little bit of an elevated probability of there perhaps being a solar flare over the next few days because of that Mercury alignment in front. Mercury is known as the activator for this. So that's possible, but the big thing I really am seeing here, and especially because of these oarfish, is a big earthquake. And I'm not just beating on the drum to, eventually an earthquake's going to occur. I don't just beat on the drum just to do it. Like, it's really only when there is signs that there is something that could happen, an elevated risk factor, that I discuss it. And so right now with that magnitude, with the two oarfish there, it's elevated for sure. So yeah. Also, just reminder, I have a website, sell holistic wellness products and merchandise and more. That's earthevolution.com/store. You can check that out right there. And with that, wishing you all the best. Please take care of yourselves. Go to the spa, treat yourself well. Also, keep in mind, it's time for a change. So let's do the things. I'll see you all in the next video. Much love and have a great day.